Welcome to the I-80 Club and another edition of the I-80 Football Show. I'm Josh Peterson, and as always, very much appreciate you taking the time to watch or listen to this week's episode. It is a fun one. I have not one, but two guests on this week's episode. It starts with Seth Wickersham, who is the author of the brand new book, American Kings, a biography of the quarterback. Came out recently. I've had a chance to read it. Really dug it. And I think if you like the history of football, if you like where things are going, where they have been, I think you're really going to enjoy this book. Such a fun read for me, and it was great to sit down and talk with Seth for a little bit about the process of writing this book, why he decided to write this book, and what he was aiming for, the themes of it throughout. A really fun conversation with Seth. And then after that, Dave Helman of the Athletic Football Show joins me to talk about the current state of the National Football League and the storylines after a few weeks of football. We talk about the Ravens and Chiefs surprising 1-2 starts. We talk about the Eagles at 3-0 and what should or shouldn't be concerning for Philadelphia. And Dave used to cover the Dallas Cowboys for DallasCowboys.com, so of course I had to get in a couple of Dallas Cowboys questions and maybe sit in my feels a little bit. So that is coming up on today's episode. As always, would very much appreciate a like and a subscribe if you're watching here on the I-80 Club YouTube channel, a rating, a review, wherever you listen. And of course, if you want everything that Jack Mitchell and I have to offer, Patreon.com/I-80 Club is the place to go. We do bonus episodes. If you subscribe to the community tier, you get everything we have to offer, plus everything from Volleyball State, including their post-game show, Volleyball Late, and any bonus episodes that they do as well. Patreon.com/I-80 Club. No Nebraska game this week, so we will not have an after Nebraska football on Saturday night, which is good for you because you can just sit on your couch and watch the glorious college football that we will have that night. But enough about college football. Let's talk about the NFL, first with Seth Wickersham, and then with Dave Helman on this week's episode of the I-80 Football Show. So happy to welcome onto the I-80 Football Show this week from ESPN and also the author of multiple books, including the all-new American Kings, a biography of the quarterback. It is Seth Wickersham. Seth, thank you so much for taking the time. How are you?
What's up, Josh? I'm doing well, thanks.
I appreciate you joining me. I really enjoyed the book. I wanted to ask you as we kick off the conversation, did you always know that the book would begin and then sprinkle out throughout it your own story of being a quarterback? I wonder how you decided to work that in.
Yeah, my story of being Alaska's Uncle Rico. Look, the book was not going to be, for your listeners, I played a little bit of quarterback in high school. And, as it does for most of us, it came to a screeching halt at one point. But the book isn't a morass about, my career, but it does inform it. And I think that, look, I played quarterback enough to know what it's like to walk through the hallways in high school as the school's quarterback. And, you don't play quarterback, you live it. And even in my own experience, it took over my self-identity in a way that, I knew instinctively as a reporter that if it took over this much for me, I can only imagine what it's like for those who do it at a really high level and for a long time. And so, I knew that my experience was going to help inform some curiosities along the way. And that's what I tried to show.
That's awesome. I read your first book, It's Better to Be Feared, a couple years ago. And
Thank you.
This absolutely, and I really enjoyed that one too. If you want to look at the New England Patriots dynasty, I highly recommend it. This is a much different book. How would you compare the writing and the research that went into that one versus the writing and the research that went into this one?
Yeah, they are really different. And I think that look, with the Patriots dynasty, it's straied out of it a little bit, but for the most part, I'm taking a look at Brady and Belichick over a 20-some year span and, how they became great at what they do and, what some of the costs of that greatness was. Look, there's cheating scandals, there's unparalleled greatness, there's some of the best games in NFL history. So, there was a lot of material to work with the Patriots. This was different in the sense that it was more idea motivated, and it's called a biography of the quarterback because that's what I'm trying to do. And so when I picked my characters, I really looked. They had to hit certain bars for me to use them in the book, because what I was really trying to do, as crazy and as ambitious as this sounds, is tell every quarterback story through the eyes of a handful of characters.
I wanted to ask you about the picking of the quarterbacks that were in this, because you end up really focusing on what, 5 or 6. Some of them are the legends of the game. You have a lot of great conversations throughout with Steve Young. You talk with John Elway. You're there for these really important moments. And then there's these younger guys. Of course, the Caleb Williams stuff has really been making waves over the last few months as excerpts have come out. And then Arch Manning as well.
Mm-hmm.
Like what went into the decision of, especially like, I guess on the younger side, I think that was really interesting, kind of figuring out which players you and families you wanted to talk to for the book.
Yeah. So look, my characters had to hit a certain bar. So either I felt like that, number one, either they had to be so essential to the history and the idea of the quarterback that I had no choice but to include them, like, Unitas or Namath or Elway or whatever, War Moon, whatever it might be. And then for the younger guys, I mean, look, there's so many younger quarterbacks. I couldn't pick them based on, hey, I think this guy's going to be great. It was more that, like, their situation had to be interesting to me. And so some of the younger current guys, like Caleb Williams, obviously, the idea to be able to address with him was, how important infrastructure and context matters to a quarterback's success. And the idea that he and his dad, thought about blowing up the draft to try to give him a really reasonable thing, some agency over his future employer. And then, Arch Manning, you have a chance to tell the entire story of this luminary family through the recruiting of this one guy who nobody even knows if he's going to be great or not, but kind of they expect him to be great. And then another young guy, Colin Hurley, he's at LSU right now. He wanted to be on the fastest of the fast tracks and be so precocious. He entered LSU at age 16. And, I think that, like, there's some warning signs along the way in the book that, as talented as he is and even as mature as he is, that maybe, wanting to be a quarterback that badly and entering college that early isn't the best idea.
Seth, I'm going to ask one of those questions that I feel like a lot of people ask with a story like this, and that's like the inspiration for it and why it happened. Because as there was the chapter or the moments where you're talking to Andrew Luck and he is saying some really interesting things. I was taken back to the profile that you did on him back in 2022 after his retirement and kind of wondering where his life is going to go next. Was that moment for you a few years back part of the inspiration, or am I maybe reading a little bit too much into this?
No, you're not. And, a lot of my discussions with Andrew were about identity and how, quarterback takes over everything in your life. And, he was dealing with a couple things towards the end of his career, including injuries. But the biggest thing he was dealing with was that, like, he didn't like who he was as a quarterback. It required him to be a certain kind of person and have everything revolve around him that, most great quarterbacks are able to make peace with. And he not only wasn't able to make peace with it, but he didn't really like who he was. And so that's one of the main reasons why he walked away from it. And, I think that, like, spending a ton of time with him, even though he doesn't figure heavily into the book, I think that, like, thematically, there's no doubt that it really made me think, especially just about, again, the way that it takes over and becomes your entire persona, and how really that doesn't change when you retire. I mean, it continues. And Bruce Springsteen used to talk, he talks about how when he comes back from a tour, he often emotionally just crashes into maybe depression at times because, on the road, he's the center of the universe. And at home, he's a highly paid chauffeur. And, imagine that if you're a quarterback and you retire at age 35 and everyone for the rest of your life looks at you for who you were at age 30. It's a really hard thing.
Yeah, I was thinking about, I know one of your good friends is Wright Thompson, and he had that
Mm-hmm.
profile on Joe Montana a couple years ago. And as I'm reading this book, I'm thinking about these, like how someone is lifted up and viewed as, I mean, it says it on the title, American Kings. They are viewed one way. And then how do you age when everyone only wants to talk about what it was like when you were 29 or something? Like, it just has to do something on someone's brain.
Yeah, I think it becomes annoying. And, I think that like the other hard thing, of course, is just how do you replicate the feeling that you lived with for so long? And, I think that like what they learn from Joe Montana to John Elway to Joe Namath and, all these guys is that like you can't. And maybe there's moments where you get a fleeting glimpse of it, but for the most part, you can't. You have to kind of put to bed who that person was for all of those years of your life and kind of reinvent yourself. And, often the way that these guys are raised as quarterbacks they don't really have the skill set and the tools to reinvent themselves. And so those are themes that I get into in the book as well.
Yeah, and kind of chasing that ghost, if you will. I thought the moment late in it when Steve Young is telling that story of the intramural football game or the flag football game at BYU in his 60s, and he makes this great throw and he goes back and it's funny because this is also unfolding as you're telling the story of the Colin Hurleys and the Arch Mannings as their careers are just beginning. And so he's trying to chase and get something that he once had, and he's doing it in the way that a young person would, right? Just sitting on his phone and rewatching the highlight over and over and over.
Totally. No, it's like that was the point of that. That was a really astute observation on your part. Whereas like I wanted the stories to talk to each other in a real way. And you have Arch Manning beginning his career at Texas. You have Colin Hurley leaving the ICU after he almost killed himself in a car wreck. And then, you have Steve Young, who's just like a great quarterback philosopher and is well balanced as he seems in the book. He gets invited to this BYU alumni football game, and his first thought is like, no way, I'm not doing that. I'm 62 years old. But sure enough, he decides to do it. And he throws this like perfect touchdown pass at the end to win the game. And, they hoisted him on their shoulders like he had just won the Super Bowl. And he was laying in bed that night. And, someone sent him the clip and he starts looking through it and, he can't stop watching it. And really, it was a beautiful throw. His mechanics were great. And, that's what makes this job so seductive and captivating is that like somewhere deep inside, we are all Uncle Rico's.
couple things for you, Seth, before we let you go. So I thought that the chapter, I think it was chapter number 2, it's like a great deep dive into the history of the quarterback and how it goes from what quarter space back to quarter dash back to quarterback, and then in kind of everything it eventually is going to mean. And it's so funny because you read about the early stars and just how different that world seems. And now I even wonder, by the time you get past like the Steve Young, the Warren Moon, the John Elway, into the Caleb Williams, where quarterback has now turned into, I mean, something else entirely. Like, I wonder how you think we are going to view the end of that generation before the social mediaization, if you will, of the position. And if that is going to feel as like old school at some point as the 1950s guys do for us now.
Yeah, I think you're right. And, when I was trying to do it wasn't a history of the forward pass, but it was a history of the quarterback position. And I think that, when I got into this, when I started doing research, I thought that it would be a slow rise for the quarterback from, the forward pass being legalized in college football in 1906 to, the quarterback being celebrated and mythologized and, really holding a preeminent spot in American culture. But really, it was fast. And that's what I think was so fascinating. It was like people realized from the moment that a spiral hit the air that, this was unique and different and, like I said, worth mythologizing in a lot of ways and celebrating. It was very interesting. But I mean, it also shows how time is a flat circle. Like Bob Waterfield in the 1940s, he was probably one half of the first power couple between sports and Hollywood. And, his friends when he was in college at UCLA were people like Frank Sinatra. I mean, like, no offense to like, Tim Tebow or Caleb Williams or, these guys who really run in elite circles. It's like it's been that way for a long time now, which is again, it's really fascinating and really cool. And of course, it also shows how again, it's like from the moment that we started throwing spirals, it was like there was something about the people who did it that kind of separated them from everyone else.
Yeah, certainly. Last one for you, Seth. We are, as of the time of this recording, we're near the end of September. Arch Manning's career at Texas as a full-time starter has gotten off to a, I don't know, interesting start, I guess. Are you
Yeah.
surprised at all by just knowing what you do and spending the time with his coach and his family? Are you surprised at all by year one as a full-time starting quarterback for Arch?
I mean, I'm not, because quarterbacking is really hard and people do it so seamlessly that, it makes it gives the facade that it's easy, but it's really hard. And, I get into when the Arch phenomenon really started. It was a spring game entering his first year at Isidore Newman High, where he threw his touchdown pass off of an audible, and everyone kind of looked at each other like, oh my God, like it is on. And from the moment he decided to do that, he knew, no matter how unreasonable and unfair it is, that like anything that ended with him not being the number one pick in the draft was somehow going to be a disappointment, and that's really not fair, but that's the reality of the path that he chose. And so I'm not surprised that he's struggling, because this is actually really hard, and we shouldn't be like duped into believing otherwise, because it cheapens the position and it cheapens the work that everyone puts into it. And he's been in college football for it's his third year now, but he hasn't played a ton. And look, this might be who he is. He might just be an inconsistent player, and that doesn't really mean anything in the grand scheme of things. It just means that, like, Arch ended up being like most quarterbacks rather than like the very, very few.
The book is American Kings, a biography of the quarterback. Seth Wickersham has also written It's Better to Be Feared, the New England Patriots Dynasty and the Pursuit of Greatness. I highly recommend both of them. They are available wherever you buy your books. Seth, thank you so much for taking the time today. Very much appreciate it.
No problem, Josh. Thank you.
And now we move on this week's episode of the I-80 Football Show. From the Athletic Football Show, he has joined them full-time for this football season. It is Dave Helman covering the NFL. Dave, thank you so much for taking the time. How are you this week?
I'm doing great, man. I mean, we're in the swing of it. Like it really feels like football season. We're learning things. This is like the biggest college football weekend of the year, which is huge. There's so much to look forward to. The weather's getting a little crispier here in Chicago. It's like it feels, it's been football season for a minute, but we're really getting into the swing now, so it feels good.
I always love talking, Dave, to NFL guys who also love college football, because so many NFL people don't. And you went to LSU. It seems like our college experience is very similar time frame. You were there for the national championship team with Les Miles. So obviously around here, people would probably be like, hey, do you got any good Bo Pelini stories? So I always appreciate that you in particular, you still like sitting down on a Saturday watching college ball all day long.
Yeah, I think it must be a cultural thing. I know like a lot of the like big NFL cities are in places where college football isn't so good, I guess. So if you didn't grow up with it, and like I said, I think it's what you grew up with, right? Like I'm from the South, and obviously Nebraska is a college football mecca. But like I don't get why we have to choose. Like I never understood the divide between college and pro football fans. Like, yeah, they are vastly different. And I'll even acknowledge, like from a technical standpoint, NFL football it's a better product. Like they're more skilled players. There's more guys that can do more things. It's a cleaner game usually, but the chaos and the eccentricity and the pageantry is what drew me to college football in the first place. So yeah, man, it makes my life busy in the fall, because like a lot of NFL people take Saturday as like a day off. And I'm like, absolutely not. We've got Oregon, Penn State this weekend. What are you talking about? But I wouldn't have it any other way.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. Before we get into the nitty-gritty of the season so far, this is, and I mentioned it, you are one of the hosts now of the Athletic Football Show. You changed jobs late in the offseason, right before the year began. How has this changed the way that you are taking in, consuming, and talking about the sport this year?
You know, it's fun because I was doing something similar anyway. I think I've been I've been podcasting about the league on a national level for 3 or 4 years now, and before that, I was an analyst for Speak on FS1. So, it was an adjustment. I was a beat writer for a long time covering the Cowboys, but at this point, it's been about 4 years that I've really been a more nationally oriented. So I feel pretty experienced at doing it. The fun thing about what I'm doing right now is I feel like I'm back on a team. Like when you cover a team on a beat, there's dozens of people that you work with on a daily basis, and similar to like a football team, like there's people that you grow to rely on and a camaraderie aspect to it that I really missed. And I feel like I have that again because I'm here in Chicago. I do the show live with Robert Mays and Derek Klassen. We've known each other for years. Robert in particular, I've known going way back. So I'm back to like doing my job and watching football with friends and colleagues again, which I didn't have at my last stop as much. So it's been a blast. I love it. I mean, the end of the day, like it is a job, but it's a very fun job where we get to watch football with our bros, and isn't that what everybody wants?
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. And this season has delivered some really fun plots so far through 3 weeks. We have the Chiefs starting 0-2 and getting a kind of a weird win on Sunday night versus the Giants. The Bills undefeated, the Colts surprisingly undefeated, the Chargers undefeated. What's the biggest story as you take the broadest look possible at the NFL through 3 weeks so far in 2025?
I think there are a few, and I think there's a number of different ways you can go with it. I mean, if we're talking about the league as a whole, like the headlines that the largest number of fans care about, I think it's fascinating. And particularly if we're looking at week 4, I mean, Baltimore and Kansas City are about to play a game where the loser is going to be 1-3. I mean, it's the best team in the league over the last 5-6 years who's been to 3 straight Super Bowls, and the team with a 2-time MVP that was I would say I feel like Baltimore was the definitive favorite to win the Super Bowl this year. I mean, I picked them to get to the Super Bowl. I thought they would have the best record in the league. They still could, for the record, but it doesn't look like that's going to be the case. And 1-3 is not a death sentence on your season, but I don't think anybody had either one of these teams sitting at 1-3 when the calendar flipped to October. So that's incredibly interesting to me. You mentioned Indianapolis. I mean, there's an interesting lesson I think to be learned about Indianapolis, and we're gonna talk about it on the Athletic Football Show this week. That is a good roster. That is a very good roster, pretty much everywhere you look. But there was a lot of uncertainty at quarterback prior to the games actually starting. I don't know a whole lot of people who were picking Daniel Jones to have much of a successful season, if he even won the job. If you go back to training camp, and we learned this lesson a lot, but like it just goes to show what situation can do for a quarterback, like a good roster with good coaching. I don't know if the Colts will maintain this, but it's a very fun story that Houston is. I mean, I don't think you can call them the runaway favorite in the AFC South just yet, but they are starting to look like a favorite in a division where I think most people, not that they wrote them off, I just think most people ignored them because Daniel Jones playing quarterback sounded boring until 3 weeks ago. I feel comfortable saying that, which clearly happy to be wrong. And then I would throw in probably San Francisco getting to 3-0 despite just being completely decimated by injury, not even having Brock Purdy for 2 of those 3 games. So yeah, there's a lot of fun stuff going on. Obviously, like I said, the big Chiefs Ravens game, but there's plenty of good subplots too.
Yeah, going back to the Ravens, I was like you. I had them in the Super Bowl. I had them winning the Super Bowl, and I'm nowhere near moving off of them. I mean, part of it too, Dave, is it's not like their defense was great at the beginning of last year either, right? So, like, I think I have that in my head. They're just such a talented team. And yet, I am curious as to what you see with their struggles where it does maybe give you pause where you say, okay, they're still going to be good. They'll still probably make the playoffs, but maybe they are not the head and shoulders team above that I thought they were a few weeks ago.
I mean, the run defense is horrific. It's horrific. They're worse than the league by rushing success rate. I mean, I think you don't have to overthink it a whole lot more than that. Their offensive line has been disappointing, but like not prohibitive, right? Like when you have Lamar Jackson, you can overcome that. I mean, they got to find a way to play better defense, particularly against the run. I think a big part of that is just not being beefy enough on the defensive line, just not holding up against other teams. Justin Madubuike didn't play on Monday night. Nnamdi Madubuike. I think that is worth mentioning. But yeah, worst in the league at defending the run is it just ain't gonna work. I know we've evolved so much and the league has become so pass oriented, but like you still got to defend the run to be good at football. That's always going to be true. So that's where I would start. And I'm with you for the record. I still think highly of the Ravens. You're so right. Like they kicked into gear about midway through last season, and the defense from like mid-October on was nothing like the defense we saw at the beginning of the year. So there's still a lot of time. But the thing is, I saw the Ravens as like a 14-3 type of team, and they might have 3 losses after 4 games. So it's just not where I thought they would be. There's still plenty of time. And we made this point on the Athletic Football Show the other night. Winning that division all of a sudden doesn't sound that hard. Like when Joe Burrow goes out in week 2, you still got the Steelers. The Browns defense is hellacious, but I mean, they've already beaten the Browns soundly once this year. Like, without Joe Burrow in that division, the Ravens probably only need 10 or 11 wins to get a home playoff game. So I'm certainly not worried about them, but it hasn't looked as good as I thought it would early.
Dave, what did you make of, like, when the Ravens came onto the scene with Lamar in 2019, his first MVP year? Like, there was that memorable game in Seattle where, like, he came over, Lamar did the sidelines, and it was like, let's go for it, and they went for it, and they win that game on making a 4th down conversion late. And then in this one, of course, Detroit is what they're always going to do, right? They are very aggressive, and that is their ethos. Meanwhile, the Ravens, after not being able to slow them down at all, they pumped the ball on that 4th down. And I know it was 4th and lengthy. It's not like it was 4th and 2, but then they were in their own territory. I guess, what did you make of that, just maybe the coaching matchup that we saw on Monday night?
You know what's funny? I'll readily admit this. Maybe some people are less willing to admit their blind spots. We talked about, we recap every primetime game on the Athletic Football Show live after it happens. So if you want up to the minute analysis, you can go find us on YouTube. We're streaming after every Monday and Thursday night game. And so we were on right after the Ravens-Lions game. And like, the decision to punt on 4th and 9, it didn't even register with me as a mistake. Because it's 4th and long, and I don't have it in front of me, but they were like backed up, like they were on their own 20 something, maybe their own 30. And so I get it. I love being aggressive. I am hip to the analytics. I'm firmly in favor of going for it. I'm not like a caveman, but I'm like, man, you've been struggling all night. Like the Lions have not, you have not had throwing lanes for the most part. Like they've been able to flummox you. Like Lamar just spent the entire night standing in the pocket. And I'm like, if you go for this and you don't get it, game's probably over. Whereas like, I know that their defense was struggling, but you give the Lions a long field. Surely they're not going to drive for another long touchdown the way they had already done twice in that game. Like, I don't love the options that were in front of me, but I was not like screaming at my TV to go for it. So I am always amused. I'm always amused when people come to vastly different conclusions, because clearly there were a lot of people that did feel that way. Like I got on the show with Robert and Derek and they were like, Harbaugh should have gone for it. And I was like, man, I guess, but you don't pick up 9 yards right there. You're basically sealing your fate with like a lot of time left in the game. So I didn't hate that, but I did think it was interesting. And we talked about this. Harbaugh sort of got his reputation as being one of the first coaches that was willing to do this. Mm-hmm. And he got, he got out aggressive by Dan Campbell, and you knew exactly what Dan Campbell was going to do. 3 4th down attempts in that game, and they had a chance to close it out at 4th and 2 or 4th and 1, whatever it was, near midfield. And of course they go for it, and of course they win because of it. So, I mean, you got to know that when you go into a game against Detroit. I still don't know if that means you need to go for it on 4th and 9 from your own 20, whatever, but there's at least an argument for it, which just shows how far we've come in whatever it is, 15, 20 short years.
Yeah, seriously. Let me ask you about the other side of this matchup, and we'll move on to some other teams. And I want you to tell me if I'm overreacting. I am viewing the Chiefs right now almost through a lens of what is this franchise moving forward with potentially the greatest quarterback of all time? Like, I've been kind of out on them this offseason going into the year. I don't really think that this group has, quote unquote, it. And so I am much more like, what is the next step to maybe return to form? Is that an overreaction after 3 weeks and after the years that they have had? And I don't know, maybe the Super Bowl is just kind of living rent free in my head right now. But I thought that was maybe closer to the truth of last season than 15-1 with Patrick Mahomes as a starter and winning a couple of playoff games.
I think you're overreacting a little bit, yes. And one thing I think you got to point out with the Chiefs is we weren't. This wasn't supposed to happen. Like this was supposed to be a better team than last year, and we immediately haven't gotten it. Obviously, I mean, Rashee Rice is serving a suspension, deservedly so. That is completely justified. But we came into the season not knowing when or if he would be suspended. And you come into the season, you're like, okay, you're going to have Rice, Worthy, Travis, and a fully healthy Hollywood and a fully healthy Pacheco, and it will look better than what it's been. And you immediately don't have Rice, and you get 3 snaps of Worthy. And so, like, we're just back to watching the boring Chiefs from last year. And, like, that wasn't supposed to happen. And so I'm not going to judge them completely until Rashee Rice is back in the lineup. Hopefully you get a healthy-ish version of Xavier Worthy at some point. Maybe not, unfortunately. I mean, it's a tough break for Kansas City. And then, like, defensively, I do worry a little bit more about the Chiefs defense. Like, I think, and I'm not saying his career's over or that he's washed or anything, but these first few weeks have maybe made you think, like, what does this defense do after Chris Jones is somebody that you can sort of build things around? Hopefully that's still a little ways off, but I would be lying if I said the thought didn't occur to me a couple times over the first 3 weeks of the year. I do still think this team can matter and be a contender this year. It kind of hinges on getting more out of the skill positions. But I'm super high on Josh Simmons. I think that's trending in the right direction. I think the defense can be good. So I feel better about Baltimore, but I feel very similarly about the Chiefs, where I'm just like, all right, let's check in with them when we get to like Halloween and see how we feel. Cause I want to see what the preferred version of Kansas City looks like before I jump to any conclusions.
Of course, one of the teams, Dave, that the Chiefs lost to in their 1-2 start was the Eagles. You mentioned the Cowboys earlier. You covered the NFC East as well for Fox Sports. I wonder, when you watch Philadelphia so far through 3 games, do they look like, are there 2023 vibes with them again, where they're going to win all these games? You know, the Jesse Pinkman, they can't keep getting away with this meme. As a Cowboys fan, I very much feel this to my core. And then they get into the postseason and maybe they get blown out by the Bucs. I don't know. Maybe I'm wish casting right now. Or is this like a team that is figuring some things out again with a new offensive coordinator? They're still too talented to not figure, like, they got to figure it out at some point, right? Like, they're not going to look like this every week, are they?
Well, this is a boring answer, but I think it's too early to know definitively the answer to that question. And I'll say this. And I apologize. You are a Cowboy fan. I apologize to any Cowboy fan that might be listening, because I know that I have ties to that organization. But Baltimore's the only team I liked more than Philly coming into this year. Like, yeah. I think Philly is primed to at least have a chance to repeat. Like, I think so highly of their roster. I think so highly of their operation. I said before the season, I trusted Nick Sirianni to handle changing offensive coordinators this time better than he did last time. And Kevin Patullo's been there. There's optimism that things can be a little bit smoother. Obviously, it's looked a little herky-jerky. It's looked a little ugly at times. The run game hasn't been as good as we've gotten used to. But the second half against the Rams, like, the Leo DiCaprio meme where he's like pointing at the TV? I was like, this is what I was talking about. Like, this is the Philly team that nobody can stop. Because, I mean, if you are willing to give A.J. Brown a chance to make plays, and that's what they did. Like, I mean, we know Jalen Hurts can make these throws. Like, even if you don't think he's a top 5 quarterback, which I do not, but he is capable of putting two of the best receivers in the league in position to make plays. And if you do that, they can do a lot for you. And the passing game opened up. It made everything easier on everybody else. And they erased a 19-point deficit in what felt like the blink of an eye. And so if they do that every week, they're going to go 15-2. But we don't know if they can do that every week yet. So the potential is there for them to be the best team in the NFL. I hope that they can reach it because I have a lot of stake in being correct. I like being right. But maybe not. Like, to your point, you could say all the same stuff about Philly in 2023 and they fell on their faces. So it's going to be an interesting game of wait and see. I do think the fact that they did that against the Rams gives me a lot of confidence. Cause, like, remember last year, like, they had like ugly games against like Carolina. Like, they always do that where they play around with somebody that's not very good and the whole Philly market freaks out and it's, everybody's upset. This is a good team. Like, I think highly of this Rams team. So for them to do that against a really good team makes me think that they can put it together.
So 2 things for you, Dave. First of all, you had the stat last week, I believe, on the Sunday night show, or maybe it was on the preview show for week 3, about how they hadn't attempted any passes between 11 and 20 yards, air yards, which was insane.
0.
To me. And I kept using that on my show, giving you credit, obviously, because it was just like baffling to me. And my wife is an Eagles fan, so we have quite the interesting marriage. And on Sundays,
that sounds fun.
Yeah, that's one word for it. Immediately when they threw the first one like that, she was like, hey, there's that pass you've been waiting for. And anyway, that's a kind of a long wind up to ask you this. What is more real with struggles from them this year that maybe, for me, not wanting them to succeed could portend to be true? Is it the pass game just being herky-jerky? Or like the Saquon carries and like that being something year to year of a little bit of drop-off? Like, could this be real, I guess I'm asking, with the run game not being certainly as dynamite as it was last year?
I'd be surprised if it's Saquon related. I think that's 2 things. So number one, not that Mekhi Becton is the best guard in football, but Mekhi Becton played well for them last year. He goes to the Chargers. And then Landon Dickerson, who's awesome, he's been banged up. I mean, you saw he got hurt in the he got hurt during training camp. He aggravated it during the season opener against Dallas. And you remember, you're a Cowboy fan. Like, they were running all over Dallas in the first half of that game.
Yep.
And then Landon Dickerson gets hurt. And I think it's a combination of like, everybody that plays Philly is going to do what they can to stop the run. Like, they're going to try to make it difficult on you to run the ball. B, if Landon Dickerson's not 100%, all of a sudden you've got iffy guard play on both sides of your center. And so like the interior of your offensive line goes from being a strength to maybe not bad, but certainly not great. And I think that has a very obvious ripple effect. So I think that is something to watch. I don't really know that it's Saquon Barkley related. I think even Saquon Barkley's not that effective if the stuff around him is not good. I mean, we learned that over the course of like 5 years in New York. So I've got a close eye on that. And then the passing game is interesting. I think, there's definitely an element of it where like, you can look at them back on tape and be like, these concepts aren't all great. Like, are guys getting open the way that they're used to getting open? And then part of it is I think Philly is just trying to limit the potential for bad things to happen, limiting the potential for mistakes. And I think when you get down whatever it was, 26-7 or 9, whatever the score was against the Rams. When you get down that bad, you have no choice. And so again, like AJ Brown was well covered on several of his big plays. Like the Rams were doing their job, but you just got to say, hey, this is the NFL and we have AJ Brown. He can make plays even if he's well covered, and we just got to get him the football. He doesn't need to be wide ass open to be able to change a game for us. And so I need Philly to remember that in a neutral situation. Like you can't just be doing that when you have no other choice. And I think that's what I'm watching with them.
I had been, Dave, all offseason kind of ruminating on the opinion that the 49ers were going to have a nice bounce-back year, really good coach, too talented, even with some moves in the offseason, yada, yada, yada. And then you threw that take out in the summer, and I was like, awesome. I think you were like the first national person that I heard that said that. And now everybody's hurt again. Mac Jones has been their starter for 2 weeks. They're still 3-0. Like, I wonder how you feel about them. Do we need to hit the eject button on thinking that they could have a really nice year, or like, hey, they've done enough to weather the storm early, packing up some of these wins or picking up some of these wins that they might be okay this year?
It's a devastating topic for me because you're right. I put a lot of eggs in the Niner basket this year. I'm not hitting the eject button. There's way too much football left. But like, for instance, on Sunday night, I was riding high. You know, I was like, they found a way to win. They're 2-0 without Brock Purdy. My plan is coming to fruition. This is great. And then like 12 hours later, you find out Nick Bosa is out for the year with an ACL. And you're like, oh my God, dude, is this team going to catch a break at all? I mean, it's Brock Purdy. It's Juwan Jennings. Brandon Ayuk has barely played a role for this team like in the last 18 months, it feels like. Now it's Bosa. They lost Mykel Williams, their rookie, for a chunk of that game. Malik Mustafa got hurt in the offseason. Like, gee, goodness gracious. It's everyone on this team. I do still think this is that good of a roster overall that I think that they can be okay. And B, I've said this on the show a few times, like, Brock Purdy played his ass off in that season opener against Seattle. I know like the stat line might not look like it, but he was balling. And so I was watching that game and I was like, man, if Brock plays like this all year, it might not matter that they have some injuries. So like, it sucks that they lost Bosa, and Robert Saleh is going to earn his money scheming around that over the course of the year. But like, if you get Purdy back, and if Juwan Jennings can stay healthy, if Ayuk can give you anything when he eventually comes back from injury, I still feel pretty good. Like maybe they're not going to reach the ceiling that I was hoping, which was like 13 wins, but I still think this could be like I think they could win the division. Unless if this keeps happening though, then eventually I will be out. But like right now I can talk myself into them still being okay.
I want to ask you about the Cowboys, given you've covered them for a while, and you know they're always a big story, of course. I was on the radio doing a pregame show for Nebraska's season opener when my soul left my body on the radio and on our YouTube stream as one of my co-hosts let me know that Micah Parsons had just been traded to the Packers. That's now about a month in the rear view. Are you still as blown away, Dave, as I am that not only they made the trade, of course, but that they seemingly did it? Well, Jerry seemingly did it because he was mad about the fact that the previous, 4 or 5 months had unfolded like they did?
I think the Cowboys are pretty consistent about letting their money get mad. So I don't want to act like too big for my britches. Like of course I was shocked. I was shocked when it happened. I couldn't believe it. And I probably 8 hours. I just like couldn't think about anything else.
Same.
But like as time has gone on, it's less surprising, you know, and like I still know people in the organization, and like going all the way back to like the beginning of his career, like I had heard things about Micah being somebody you got to deal with, right? Like a personality that you got to handle with care, and like it's a thing. And so did I ever think that it would lead to him getting traded? Absolutely not. But like when you combine that annoyance with the with the money aspect and the pride aspect of like, clearly these were just two egos that weren't going to budge, then I understand how we got here. I still think it's insane. I think it's completely insane, but I understand how we got here. I mean, it's classic Cowboys. It's very reminiscent of why Jimmy Johnson stopped coaching the Cowboys in the middle of a dynasty run. Like, it's not completely the same, but it's very reminiscent. And so fittingly, it's funny that Jerry keeps trying to tie it to the Herschel Walker trade too, where I'm just like, man, you know how many picks you got in that trade? Like, do you understand how much different this is? Because it really, really is. And it is what it is. I mean, Mike is going to go to AT&T on Sunday. Given the state of the Cowboys O-line right now, I'd be shocked if he. I mean, I'm not saying he's going to like set a record or anything, but I'd be shocked if he at least doesn't have a sack or sack and a half, 2 sacks, whatever. And it's you're the Cowboy fan. You tell me this. I'm intrigued to watch the Cowboys as long as Dak, CD, and Pickens are healthy. So like right now, if CD's out, I got nothing. I got nothing keeping me interested in this team. But like in the long run too, I'm just like, all right, this team's not going anywhere meaningful. Like even if they get their act together enough to flirt with the playoffs, what does that mean? And so we're just beginning our long trudge toward talking about what they're going to do with these 2 first-round picks. And as somebody who covers the draft, that's interesting to me. But like the preceding, like, you know, the next 15 weeks until we get to that point, this team doesn't do a whole lot for me right now, and especially not until CeeDee Lamb gets back and this passing attack can be what it was for the first couple weeks.
Yeah, they're caught in this weird no man's land where you have this quarterback that you really like, and I think he's been playing, pretty well, honestly, to start the year. And
he's been great, man.
Yeah.
Dak's been awesome. I don't want to hear a word about. I was kind of encouraged. I mean, there's always going to be people that have something to say, but like consider, Dak, like they lost by 17 to the Bears, and it wasn't like the best game on Dak's part at all. But considering he lost CD like early in that game,
first quarter.
I was kind of encouraged that like nobody was trashing Dak, because like that's the type of thing that happens where the Cowboys get their butts kicked for 18 different reasons, mainly because they have no defense to speak of, and people still find a way to blame the quarterback. So I was kind of encouraged on Monday where I was like, all right, have we finally grown past trying to put this all on Dak Prescott?
Yeah, and now I just wonder if they could truly have the bottom out year. And I'll be honest, Dave, I was super pessimistic coming into the season, even before the trade, and then that happened, and maybe I just got caught in my feels, but I was like, they're going to finish 4th in the division. And now I kind of think that that's on the table again, just because of how bad the defense is and no CeeDee Lamb. And I don't know, I've never been the biggest Pickens fan. I think he's an awesome number 2. I worry about him being a number 1 over the next few weeks, but I don't know. Maybe I'm just being a classic pessimistic fan right now.
This is purely anecdotal. I got no stats or anything to back it up, but like I covered the team for a long time, and there were several years where I was like, they're going to bottom out. They're not good. They're going to finish 4th in the division. They're going to win less than 6 games. And they never do. They always find a way to circle the wagons. They might even do something crazy like make a trade to fortify the team, because Jerry Jones will not stomach a bottoming out. Like he can't do it. Like he needs the Cowboys to be relevant for any of the rest of it to work. Like the Cowboys as a 24-hour circus only work if they're relevant. Like you can't do that stuff if you're 5 games below 500. So they'll find a way. And like, again, if CD's back, the last report I saw said he might miss like 2 games or whatever. If CD's back in 2 or 3 weeks, the offense, I mean, they're running the ball great. They'll get some of these linemen back. Again, it is a long season. This might be a really crappy stretch with CD and Tyler Booker and Cooper Beebe out. They might lose the next 3 games. I know they got Green Bay. The Jets. Yeah, like They got some
Panthers.
winnable games in here. So yeah, like the Cowboys, I got to see them bottom out to believe it. They are going to win. They're going to win 7 or 8 games probably. But they're going to look uninspiring the entire time, which is like, it's a frustrating place to be because I know there are a lot of fans that are like, well, if we're not any good, can we just work on our draft stock? But
cue the tank meme from Jeff Kavanaugh, the tank sliding on the ice over and over.
My dear friend Jeffrey. But like, I got to see him do that to believe it. And like, if they ever did it, it wouldn't be on purpose, like they are not going to actively choose to be out of the mix. And so, yeah, I like 7 and 10 just feels like the perfect number for them. Or maybe if they get some injured guys back and get things clicking, maybe it could still be better, but I'm not optimistic.
Yeah, me neither. He is Dave Helman. He is on the Athletic Football Show. He mentioned it earlier. They do recaps after the primetime games, live and available on YouTube. He also does Building the Beast, which is available on the Athletic Football Show podcast feed, and that comes out each and every Wednesday as he looks ahead with his partner Dane Brugler to a variety of draft prospects. They're looking ahead this week to the massive Oregon, Penn State, and Georgia, Alabama matchups, and a whole lot more. The recap pods are awesome. The preview pods are awesome. Dave, this was a wonderful conversation. Thanks so much for joining me today to talk a little NFL.
Happy to be on with you, Josh. Appreciate it, man.
Thanks again to Seth. Thanks again to Dave for joining me on today's I-80 Football Show. A reminder on our way out that coming up on Friday, the Big Ten Breakdown gets you ready for all the weekend's games in the conference, including Oregon at Penn State. That one will be a lot of fun. That will be available on Friday morning. Jack and I will have a Saturday morning coffee show coming up on Saturday. No post-game show that night because, of course, Nebraska is idle this week. And then coming up over the course of the next few days, another Volleyball State live for subscribers on Sunday night, the Big Ten Breakdown recap episode on Monday morning, and then off into another game week. We go, a brand new I-80 football show coming next week. Back to the college ranks we go, and I think that you will enjoy listening to next week's guest. And don't forget, Volleyball Late was recorded after the Nebraska and Michigan game on Wednesday night, so you can get that if you are a community tier subscriber or if you subscribe to the Volleyball State tier on the I-80 Club. Patreon.com/I-80 Club. We would love to have you as we keep rolling on into the second month of the regular season. Basketball season will be here before you know it as well. Thanks again to Seth. Thanks again to Dave. I'm Josh Peterson. We'll talk to you later.